Hello and welcome to Reimagining Love. I'm Dr. Alexandra Solomon. I have been studying relationships for over 20 years as a couples therapist, a professor, an award-winning author, and as a wife, mother, daughter, sister, and friend. Now, I'm inviting you into this space each week as I dig into some of the toughest and most fascinating relational dilemmas of our time. If you want to discover how to create vibrant and loving relationships in your own life, you have come to the right place. This is Reimagining Love. Hi there. Happy Tuesday and welcome back to another episode of Reimagining Love. I'm always so grateful when you decide to share this space with me. And you're in for a real treat because I have Cathy Heller in the house today. Here's a quote from Cathy that really sets the tone for this episode. Quote, "So often we look outside ourselves for the expansion that lives within." End quote. Her new book came out back in December and it's called Abundant Ever After: Tools for Creating a Life of Prosperity and Ease. Cathy's going to share those very tools for how to join her in that space of wholeness and lightness in this conversation, starting with a really nourishing meditation, which I loved. Cathy is a coach, a spiritual guide, meditation teacher, and inspirational speaker dedicated to helping individuals find ease, joy, and fulfillment in their lives. In addition to her new book, she's also the host of the Abundant Ever After podcast and the author of Don't Keep Your Day Job: How to Turn Your Passion into Your Career. You've probably heard of the law of attraction, but in this conversation, Cathy tells us about the law of reception and how that's actually a different mode. So this conversation is really all about reception and receiving. And Cathy even describes our capacity for welcoming the goodness we seek as a radio dial, saying that we can tune in to different channels and begin receiving the music that's already out there in the universe. I really loved hearing about Cathy's ideas. I love the Jewish and Kabbalistic lens through which she views this work. And I love how she incorporates meditation and gratitude into her daily routine, which you can steal right from this conversation right now, starting today. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Cathy Heller. Okay, so I am here with Cathy Heller, and we are right at the tippity top of this thing. We're going into meditation mode, y'all, and I'm right here with you. Cathy, I haven't even said hello to Cathy yet. We're just going to begin with a meditation.
Thank you, guys. This is going to feel so good. So if you are somewhere where you can follow along and close your eyes, that would be great. If not, if you're driving, then come back to this later. But for those who can participate, we're going to start by gently closing our eyes and resting our hands, both hands softly on your heart. And just let your breath slowly inhale deeply for the count of 4. And then we're going to hold it at the top. And then we're going to exhale through our mouth for the count of 6. We always exhale a little bit longer. So we're going to do that one more time. Inhaling. Feel your chest rise. Feel your belly rise. Hold it at the top. And exhale. And just gently invite any tension that you've been carrying. Just set it down. There's nowhere else you need to be right this moment. There's nothing that you need to do. Just being. It's your only assignment. And now just bring your awareness, with your eyes still closed, just bring your awareness to the fact that you are here in this space. And the space you're in, the room you're in, is filled with energy. And there's a quiet potential in this very moment. Just imagine that you're surrounded by this like soft golden light. It's warm, it's radiant, it's calming. This is the frequency of abundance. It's always here. It's always available. And with every breath, I want you to feel yourself syncing with this frequency. So let your shoulders drop, let your jaw soften. Feel the space behind your heart expand. Feel there's more room for ease. There's more room for receiving. And now I want you to picture the version of you who already has everything you desire. She's radiant. She's confident. She's in alignment. She's whole. She's unshakable. She doesn't chase anything because she draws everything toward her like a magnet. The right opportunities flow to her effortlessly. Everything in the right timing because of who she is being. I want you to see her in detail. What is she wearing? How does she carry herself? How does she speak? Notice her energy is calm and rooted and magnetic. And I want you to now step into her body, become her, feel her energy filling your chest. Breathe in this ease. Breathe in this feeling of wholeness. The quantum field responds to being, not doing. And right now you are her. You've collapsed time. There is no gap. You are the magnet. So let's deepen that feeling with 3 affirmations that you will say quietly to yourself in your mind after me. I receive with ease because I am aligned. I am a portal for abundance. I am a magnet for everything that's always been meant for me. And feel the truth of those words in your body on a cellular level. Let them land. This is your natural state. And finally, ask yourself, what is one thing that would shift for me today if I knew everything I wanted is always on the way, is always here, always present to my being whole? And let the answer arrive gently without forcing. Fully feel this energy of abundance and let it anchor into your body. And you can just, with your eyes closed, gently roll your shoulders back, lift your chest like you know this is your true being. And if you want, with your eyes closed, just stretch your arms open wide, open to receive. Let the body remember who you are, what energy lives in you, and what incredible magic surrounds you. And so it is. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you, Cathy.
It's fun to do. It's amazing how quickly we remember. It's amazing how so many questions melt away when our energy changes, and so many knowings and answers just like come through.
Mhm. When you asked at the end, what's one thing that we would do differently? It was really clear that I would say no without guilt. I have a sense that a lot of my yeses are from a fear of what if I don't say yes to this? What will I miss?
Wow, that's big.
I wanted to share with you right at the top that there's somebody in my world who was telling me a story that she was reading this book and did a meditation in this book. And then the next day, a job that she had applied for 3 months earlier and heard nothing back reached out to her and wanted to interview. And I was like, whoa. And then she said, no, that's not it. And then 24 hours later, the other dream job that she had applied for 3 months later reached out to her and asked her for an interview. I was like, are you reading Cathy Heller's new book, Abundant Ever After? She said, I am. I was like, well, I'm about to meet her. And she said, please thank her.
That is the coolest story.
And I said, "Are we agreeing that Cathy is like wonderfully witchy? Like, what's going on here?" She's like, "Oh, yeah, something is really interesting here."
There is a witch amongst us.
Do you hear stories like that a lot?
I love stories like that. I would love to hear them every moment. But yes, I
Mm,
hear some. That one is amazing. So
that
good.
one's amazing. That
Thank
one's
you for that.
amazing. Well, thank you for being here with me today. I'm really excited to spend some time with you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, will you answer, please, the question that I ask all of our guests here on Reimagining Love, which is, Cathy, how are you reimagining love in one of your important relationships these days?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was just telling my daughter, I feel so peaceful this morning. I just feel tremendous peace without going into the details with her. But the reason for it is because I'm actually in the process of reimagining on such a beautiful, like epic level what's been the state of my marriage for the last, we've been married 15 years. And he's such a pure, good, refined, unbelievably special soul. And we were really good friends before we started dating. And he grew up with a mom who's a widow, and he's a very dedicated son. She recently passed away 3 years ago. He lost his dad when he was a child, and he has a sister with Down syndrome. He has a tremendous amount of empathy and compassion. And he is just such a kind person. And he also really never was given the tools to process his father's death. And so he was just extremely stuck and makes a lot of jokes and is very funny as a way of not feeling. And I, over the course of 15 years, through so many different therapists, couples therapists, and different kinds of ideas that I thought would be helpful, I just kept hitting a wall. And eventually I really just did the deep dive on my own work, my own inner work, and started going on silent meditation retreats and really deepening my own healing. And eventually I totally outgrew the relationship. And with so much love and honoring and respect, just really lovingly set it down and told him that I would be happy to be whatever is the best version of our soul family, because we're totally soulmates. Like, he's really my best friend. And I really let myself go through every real feeling of that experience because it really was real and it still is. But what's happened is he has chosen to do his own deep healing work. And he found this incredible man who lives in India, who is such a gentle, deep, amazing healer, so powerful. And he's been working with him. He flew in twice, and then in between, they do these like long 3 hour Zoom somatic sessions. And his energy and his healing is so palpable and so alivening. And we are continuing to really hold this space for each other. But I have lots of signs that tell me that not only will we have a relationship, it'll be the most incredible relationship that we've ever had. And I feel so honored. I feel that we both honored ourselves so deeply. And I didn't know at all that after 15 years that he would, it really just seemed completely out of the field of possibility. And it felt like my next big expansion was going to have to be to lovingly set it down. So I'm just completely at this deep level of awe and peace that liberation is such a two-way street. And when we come from not needing anyone to do anything, we just decide what we need. And we really love deeply the other person. And we're really here to be a stand for them and ourselves. Sometimes relationships really surprise you and people step forward into their self. And now he's like, you gave me something I needed, because he's so much freer, having been willing to grieve his father and talk about all the things. It's like he just never was willing. Sometimes people make choices once they're super uncomfortable and they have to. And sometimes people still don't make a choice or whatever it is, but it is pretty darn cool. And we're still at the very beginning stages of what this journey looks like, but it's amazing. I can't believe for how long, and I think there are probably listeners who get this, for how long I made a choice that there were three bad choices. These are the choices that I thought were available to me. Leave, that was one choice. Decide that it's all me, or just accept it how it is. It's like either accept him how he is or leave, or it's all you. So I would toggle between those three things until I finally was like, how about we have three children, we love each other, we're never going to leave each other because that's just a fact, no matter what our relationship looks like. And how about it's not all me? And how about I'm not going to gaslight myself? And my friend Mark Grove said to me, who you mentioned before, he said, women often say that when there's something wrong with the relationship, they feel like it's an indication that there's something wrong with them. He said, how about the fact that there's something wrong in the relationship and you knew it means there's something right with you, that you know when something's wrong. And of course, this is all your domain, and I really feel like this is your expertise, but I, for so long, could not really honor that the fact that I knew something was wrong meant that there was something right with me, that I knew that, and that I can honor it, and then also go do all the things I needed to do to make myself more whole, right? But it wasn't just like, oh, just accept it because it's all you, or, oh, just leave, I guess. It's like, what about the option of really holding for what feels like the truth and then just seeing what everybody chooses? And then the last thing Mark said to me around the time when I was doing this is, what if when you tell him the truth, what you're actually saying is, I trust you with the truth?
What I would underline with the highlighter triple times under was when I heard you say that you reached a point where you said to your husband, I love you, we'll always be a soul family, and I'm not going to keep carrying this in this way. And so in that way, you did not give an ultimatum. You didn't say go heal or else. There was no ultimatum. It was you spoke truth, and he made a choice. And so now, and then you just waited and saw, because you did not know what was going to happen. And so now your husband knows that you are choosing him. It's not that you won some power struggle and an ultimatum and you said this and then he went and healed. And now, it's just, I hear how much this relationship is deeply chosen.
That is so beautiful. And I will just say as well, something that allowed me to get to that place was taking responsibility fully for the relationship that I had co-created. And what I realized, and this is so big, and maybe people listening are going to say, oh my God, that I relate to that, is that I had to understand that when I chose to be in a relationship with him, of course, there were reasons, because I mentioned all of his good qualities, the kindness, the loyalty, the integrity, all of that. And the parts of him that were 13 years old, which is the year his father died, what I had to realize was there was something about that was so appealing to me, because there was a safety for me at the time when I was 27 and we met. We got married, I was 30. But there was something that felt so safe to be with a man who was a little boy. And there was a version of me that didn't want a man in his power because I wasn't in my power. And I was not strong enough. And so, on some level, whether I knew it or not consciously, obviously I didn't, but there was a level of like, well, maybe there's a benefit if he's a 13-year-old on some level because I can be in control. And what you said before is all still manipulation. If you give someone an ultimatum, you're still controlling, right? And so, through the course of really literally breaking through so much grief of my own and doing my own healing, when I got to a place where I was actually powerful, is when I let go of trying to control anybody else. I was like, I love us. I always will. You're my best friend. I will be there for you. I will put up your JDate profile. I will set you. I'll do whatever you want. And I also know at this point, I can't do it. And it's interesting because I've been on this healing road for a long time. But the clincher was that my father died. And I said this to my husband 1 month after. to the day. And what I realized was the girl who was my father's daughter, when my father died, she died. I no longer had to be the girl who, when her father left, it was funny because my husband's dad died when he was 13 and my dad left when I was 13. And I was a traumatic wound, trauma bond vibrational match for my husband in a way. I was probably on some level really afraid of men and really wanted to be with a 13-year-old boy. And my husband was safe and loyal and not in his power. And so I didn't scare me, maybe, who knows? But I also, being my father's daughter, was never in my truth, totally people pleaser, always afraid my dad would get mad. And I just had so many abandonment issues. And so I grew. I grew up and I became a mother and I have 3 children and I started a business and I grew a business and I wrote 2 books and I really, I soul journeyed. I spent 3 years in Jerusalem and I spent 3 years doing meditation retreats. And I did so many things to the point where when he finally died, I was like, okay, she used to live here still like 10%. She's gone. We're not doing 10%. And now I get to be fully honest with him because I get to be fully myself now.
You included a part of your dad's essay at the end of your book. It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. It's clear how much, how much he lives on through you. And I hear that in his passing, that was a kind of initiation for you to speak truth to your husband in a way that you hadn't yet. I would love for us to learn a bit more about, you really demonstrated it. Well, first of all, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing about where you've been and where you are. It's so there's like lots of gifts in there for listeners. But tell us about, so you modeled for us in the meditation about receiving and really like stepping into receptivity to the point where we expanded our arms at the end to receive. So what is the law of reception? How is it different than the sort of the secret law of attraction, manifesting? Just give us a frame for how we understand the law of reception.
I think a lot of people have heard about the law of attraction. I'm sure your listeners are those kinds of people that have read all the books and studied Wayne Dyer and Abraham Hicks and all of that. And what I think is so beautiful is when so many rivers lead to the same ocean. And so whether you're studying, from Deepak Chopra and looking at Hinduism, or you're looking at Wayne Dyer and he's coming through a Christian lens, there's a way in which different timeless ancient wisdom sort of connects us to all these rivers lead to the same ocean. And so the lens that I look through is a Jewish lens, it's a Kabbalistic lens. And it's so powerful and it's so deep. And that's where we get the idea of the law of reception. So I'll just break this down for you a little bit. I think it's really powerful. So the word Kabbalah literally means to receive. That's what the word means. The Hebrew word lekabel means to receive. However you conjugate it, you're talking about receiving in one conjugation or another, which is really interesting because it means that the mandate of being a human is to receive. That's the whole thing. So then you can say, well, what the heck? What does it mean? Right? Because the word could be a different word, right? The word that encapsulates all of Jewish wisdom could have been service, right? There's so many different words you could have used. The word was receive. So what does it mean? It means that a light bulb receives light, right? And some light bulbs can receive 45 watts and some light bulbs can receive 75 watts. And the idea is, how much does your vessel receive? How much light, how much energy, how much love? And your mandate, so to speak, your human purpose is to be in the most radical reception possible by which the most energy flows through you. You are a portal of energy. We are each a lightning rod to hold energy. And we know this through Kundalini Yoga. We understand now that love itself is healing medicine, like a twin baby that's born next to its other twin, just by loving it, it literally changes the twins, like, mitochondria, and it starts to have a reaction. Or if you talk to your plants, your energy is loving it into life, right? You walk into a room, you are an energetic being. And so the more wholeness, the more love, the more compassion, the more creativity, the more enthusiasm, it's infectious. You are literally like a Wi-Fi router. And as you walk through the world, other people can feed off your Wi-Fi. And what it does is it puts them back into their own receptive mode, because the ultimate Wi-Fi router is God, the creator, right? And we are each like little vessels by which the infinite flows through. And that is how we serve. We serve by allowing a light that's so infinite and divine to flow through us, right? So Rabbi Aaron, who's my teacher, I lived with him and his wife and his 7 children in the old city of Jerusalem for 3 years. It's a really kind of cool story. Most of what I just said, he explained to me. But another thing that he teaches is that if you had a radio, another word for a radio is a receiver. And if you put this radio on the desk and I turned it on right now, all of a sudden we would hear music. And then a really cool question to ask is, where was the music before we turned on the radio? And the only real answer is that it was here already, but it was hidden in plain sight because we didn't have the tuning to receive that frequency of that song. And then Rabbi Aaron would say, what's so cool about a radio is you don't only get one song choice. There's multiple stations on the same radio. So this one radio, without moving in space or time, literally sitting in the same room at the same moment, can tune from Celine Dion to hip hop to salsa music. So that means that all of those songs are all here. They're all potential realities, right? So the reality that you are receiving, you are choosing, you're selecting that radio station. So what it means is when you tune your own energy to ease, to surrender, to wholeness, to love, to connection, you walk through the world and you receive that song. Everything that plays in your life feels like meaning and purpose and love and goodness. It's like that is what you are tuned to. That is what comes back to you. That is what you interpret. That is where you put your focus. That's everything. But if a person is tuned to scarcity and lack and doubt and shame, and all that they'll keep bumping into in their life is that song, right? And so the idea is that we have within us the plug, right? Like imagine if you had I say in the book, imagine if you had like a waffle iron, but you didn't know what it did. So you just have it as a paperweight and your friend is like, no. If you plug that in and you put some batter in it, you make breakfast. And you're like, what? I didn't know what it did, right? So most of the time, people are choosing, instead of plugging into the wholeness within them, they're externalizing their happiness by looking around them and saying, I'm going to decide that my sense of wholeness or my sense of joy has to come from whatever I see on social media or whatever's happening outside of me or who's in the room or what just happened. It's like, no. The only thing that you've ever been chasing is the feeling of the lightness of your own being. And when you find the wholeness within you, and like Rabbi Aaron says, we're each a masterpiece, a piece of the master. We're someone because we're some of the one, right? When we wake up every morning and we have tea with ourselves and we invite the divine to that meeting in the morning, where would you have me go? What would you have me know? We're not chasing success and enoughness. We're chasing significance, and we are significant just being here in this moment, just being a portal for love itself, for appreciating beauty, for looking outside your window and seeing the 19 shades of green in the one tree that's outside. It's like when we tune in, we're turned on, and then we turn on everything in the world. And the most controversial thing I ever tell people is that life is not meant to be hard. And so tune to this tuning, the amount of synchronicity in your life it's every second. It's always. You wind up realizing that you're always at the right place at the right time because you're present. Everything you ever needed is always right there, which is your own capacity to be in the wholeness of what's happening within and all around you. It becomes a mirror of what's happening inside of you.
Did we know this and then forget it because it gets blocked, right? It is right now, but we get blocked. We get into these limiting beliefs. We get into these old stories. Like, do you imagine it's a peeling off of the social conditioning, of the wounds, to get back to this?
First of all, I love that question for multiple reasons, and I just want to answer it in two ways. Number one, yes, there is a part of us that can remember Siddhartha, who is the Buddha, right? He talks about sitting under the Bodhi tree. And he was a prince. He grew up in a palace. And then one day he sort of left the palace and he was wanting to find enlightenment. And he was sitting under a tree, looking up at the leaves and remembering that when he was a little boy, felt that feeling of equanimity where he didn't have to prove himself, where joy was just in being and looking at whatever was around and enjoying being. Like my cat is sitting in front of me right now, is not trying to do anything to prove itself, to be worthy of its existence. It's just being. So there is a part of us that since we were very, very, very little, who we were at conception, right? Yes, we knew all of this, right? In fact, the Talmud says that the reason why we all have this little dip underneath our nose, right above our lip, is because there's an angel that, whispers to us to sort of forget all of the wisdom so that we come through the human experience, because there's something really satisfying about continuously unpacking more expansion. What I also wanted to say about your question, did we know this before, is that I was having dinner with my friend Casey Means, who wrote this amazing book called Good Energy. And she's a Stanford doctor who has like lots to say about a lot of things. But she and I were talking about this, and she said to me, do you realize that humanity is remembering what we once knew? I mean to say, like, when you said, did we know this before? We often think that we're at the most sort of evolved version, as if every generation becomes more evolved. But it's actually not true. It's true in some ways. Like you could see technological advances obviously become more evolved. But when you think about, just for instance, right, there's lots of examples, but just as a for example, when you think about like the days of King David and Abraham, right? Abraham wrote the Zodiac. Okay. So we found the oldest carbon dated book that ever wrote the astrology was written by Abraham. It was found in an archaeological dig in Israel, in Beersheba, where Abraham lived. And it's written in his writing. What I mean is, there were times in civilization where there were codes of energy, where there was like a quantum universal language, right, of how we saw through the matrix, and Aristotle and Sir Isaac Newton was such a believer in the divine and would like look. He was looking at the Beit HaMikdash, which was the temple that King David and King Solomon built in Jerusalem. And he actually saw that the ways that temple was built was like a geometric pattern that in and of itself, like held all these like codes. Like it's unbelievable, right? The levels of what I'm saying. And so we did know this before, right? Like we've gotten further from nature. We've gotten further from the way that we dwell in silence and stillness. And so, yes, in some ways we've advanced as a society, and in many ways we've totally regressed. And so, what's exciting though to me about that is the waking up that's starting to happen right now. These are the books everyone is craving. My mom says, she's 75. She's like, when I was growing up, there was no self-development section in the bookstore. It was fiction and nonfiction. So what's exciting is that it gives me so much of a sense of possibility and hope, because we've been here before. We're returning to a higher state of consciousness. It's not a leap to think that human beings could go back to land, could go back to connecting, could go back to meditation, and I'll just say that the word Shabbat, which is the word for the Sabbath, that word, because we talked about Kabbalah, that word means to meditate. That is what the word means. And so we're talking about coming from generations of people who their practice wasn't showing up in a fancy car with fancy clothes and going to church or synagogue. It was like going and sitting down and meditating and connecting with the divine, right? And so it just makes so much sense. And so, yes, I think on every level, we know this. And then when we hear it, our soul says, that is right. That makes sense. And so I think that's why for me, going to live in this 3,000-year-old city of Jerusalem, it didn't feel like I had to convince it was like, of course, my life is not about going to the mall and shopping, right? My life is about being a human being. And what does it mean to be connected? Like Rabbi Aaron says, if God was like the sun, you'd be a ray of that light, right? That's how connected you are to the divine. And you are put here to do your only job is to be a vehicle for that love and goodness. And when you have that, there's nothing you're trying to prove. Most people, when they come to me, they have their ladder on the wall called, how many things can I collect? I need a bigger pile of stuff, because the more things I have outside of me will make me feel more whole inside of me. And it's not so. And so that's why I'm saying, like, your abundance is inside of you. It's the inner peace that you can find. It's your capacity to know how in purpose you are by just being resonant and walking into a room. Most impressive person in the room, it's not where they went to college, it's not what car they drive, it's how loving they are, how present. So yes, we're sitting on gold.
That part of your book stood out to me so deeply about how the most powerful, the most loving person in the room is the most powerful person in the room. And I've shared that in a number of conversations since I've read your book, and it makes much sense for so many people. And so my question is, I want to hear more about how, and I suspect I know the how has to do with meditation, because you've also said that you've spoken with over 900 of the most fabulous, accomplished, smart people on the planet. And you have said that the through line that you have found in those over 900 conversations you've had on your podcast is meditation, that is a powerful practice for how we remember. So tell us, what do we do to be the most loving person in the room?
First of all, we have to just have some awareness of what's happening. We have an amygdala that is just constantly in fight or flight, and it spits out thoughts and worries, and it's built to protect you. So it thinks everything is dangerous and it's trying to keep you alive. And the cortisol that it creates in your body makes you feel fog and sick. And what's also important to know is that cortisol is more addictive than nicotine. So we're actually addicted to feeling bad and addicted to stress. And just like when you get off sugar, you're like, I got this. And 3 days later, your body is craving gummy bears. Your body will crave shame. Your body will crave sabotaging yourself and picking a fight with someone because it wants the cortisol so badly. So just be really gentle and loving to know that. And so when people start to even consider meditation, that feels really scary, because they're like, first of all, they have a lot of myths. Like, does that mean I have to stop thinking? It's like, as long as you're living, your mind won't stop thinking. Just like your heart won't stop beating. Minds think, that's what minds do. So no, guess what? You get a pass. Your mind's never going to stop thinking. The idea of meditation is not that you got your mind to stop thinking. It's changing your relationship with your mind. So it means instead of being stuck in the blizzard of thought, you're witnessing the blizzard. Instead of being stuck in it and unconscious and you're not even aware, you're just like believing everything you think and walking through your day feeling overwhelmed and heavy and slow and in the fog. Instead, you just spend maybe even 90 seconds and close your eyes and you say to yourself something like, I wonder what my next thought's going to be. And then you just notice, like, I'm thinking about my mother-in-law. I'm thinking about the fact that I'm hungry. I'm judging myself. And you just witness without judgment. And then you change the radio dial by selecting and asking yourself a question, which is, how do I wish to feel today? In the same way that you're going to select what you're going to wear for the day, I want you to select, how do I want to feel? What would ease feel like? Let me feel that for 1 minute. What would surrender feel like? Let me feel that. What would it feel like to know that everything is in divine order and my only job is to be in a state of well-being? It can literally be 90 seconds like that. What happens is you start memorizing how good that feels. You start pattern interrupting your day by doing that. And then you want to sit with that maybe a little longer. Or you realize that, that really puts me into some kind of like feeling of flow state. So now I feel everything just changed about my day. Because if you're on a boat and you change course 2 degrees on the boat and you keep going 50 yards and then you go another 100 miles, just by changing course 2 degrees, you'll wind up in a different continent. So just those little shifts are a good starting point, because instead of your thoughts driving the bus all day long, which is just the groundhog day of what you thought yesterday, which made you feel what you felt yesterday, which made your life exactly what it was yesterday, you could just change course. And instead of your thoughts unconsciously driving the ship, you could choose from a place of your soul. Your consciousness could be awake, choosing, how do I want to feel today? What really is possible? What is true? What does divine order feel like? How would it feel if I felt connected to all that is? And I didn't need to prove myself. And my wholeness is not outside of me. It's just in being a blessing in the world. And wherever I go, at the bus stop, dropping my kids off at school, at Starbucks, just being who I am in this sense of wholeness, maybe that would become a blessing to other people. And then it's uncanny how many opportunities then there are for you to make somebody's day brighter just by being present, just by having good energy. And people will then give you the best compliment, which is not how great your hair looks. The best compliment is, wow, you have great energy. And you're going to realize, oh, that's what love looks like in the world. It shows up as you have great energy. Because when you are responsible for the energy you bring into a space, and that energy is you just feeling whole, not insecure, not trying to prove yourself, not trying to be heard, then that is the most loving person, because you have space. There's nothing urgent. And if you look out in nature, there's nothing rushing. There's nothing trying to prove itself. There's nothing that feels like it needs so badly for something to happen. And so this is the reason people have a hard time receiving and manifesting, because they need it so badly to happen, which is indicative of, I don't feel whole until the relationship happens, which means I'll just keep pushing it further and further away, because we can't create from lack. We create from wholeness. Same thing with money. The people will be like, I want to manifest money. I keep looking at it and saying this affirmation, but it doesn't happen but what you're really saying is, I need it so badly. I don't feel a sense of being whole or being enough until I have it. So you'll just keep pushing it further and further away. The more we find wholeness within ourselves, we love everything around us, because we were designed to be an instrument that's loving in its wholeness.
What does your daily practice, meditation practice, look like for you in this season of your life?
It's a combination of things. There is a practice I do, because I think this will be helpful to people listening, perhaps. I think we subconsciously get pulled into a dopamine heavy culture, where dopamine is the molecule of more. You always want more. You always want to manifest the next thing, or check your phone again, or create something else, because there's this feeling of dopamine that you get when you think about more. And what's better for me is the molecule of serotonin, which is the feeling of being satisfied. So in my day, a couple times a day, I will literally like create a sanctuary of time where I just literally let myself feel the havingness of what I have. Like literally drink in everything there is to feel deeply satisfied with, and how much I have to have, like the having, the receiving of everything in this moment. The wood floor beneath my feet, the coffee I just drank, my children's laughter, the birds, my work, my joints, my body. It's like, and I then tell people something that they find shocking, which is, there are so many moments in your day that are perfect. And when I tell people that, they look at me and they go, oh my God, I never have that awareness that things are perfect. I go, they're literally perfect, to the point where you have this addiction to pressure, where you forget because we're all wired to believe that if we let ourselves fill up and feel how much we have, maybe we won't be driven, or maybe we'll stop manifesting more, or maybe that means we'll be ambivalent to the suffering in the world. It's like your greatest contribution to humanity is you being in a state of well-being, equanimity, peace, and full overflow. And the fact that you think you get a badge, like, or a gold star for always being busy, always being depleted, and being able to rattle off why nothing is perfect ever, it just means you're unplugged from the radio. And the truth of the matter is, when we get to 98 years old and we're like taking our last breaths, you're going to look back and go, oh my God, I was like on the daily missing perfect moment after perfect moment after perfect moment after perfect moment. And I do that a couple of times a day where I drink in the good. I fill up fully, when your car tank is filled, it's like I fill up to the point of like total satisfaction.
It's a shade different from a gratitude practice, a gratitude practice, it just because it feels like it's so, the havingness practice is really about taking it in. I feel like gratitude sometimes is like pointing to the things out there that are good. This havingness that you're doing is really about savoring and soaking into you. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I think most people, without realizing it, are constantly feeling a tiny tinge of suffering because there's always the next thing, and there's always lack, and there's always what they need more of. And they're like, so what's sad about that is then even when the thing happens, you'll be still in the habit of moving the goalpost and thinking that you need more. And the truth of the matter is that the more we are an energetic match for full and satisfied, we manifest the most incredible things because, again, it's a vibrational match. And so along my journey, since I came back from Jerusalem, I've just always felt so overflow. I have so much, because what is to have is the feeling of my own being connected to the divine, connected to all these amazing people I get to meet all day long, these little strangers that become the most incredible gifts. So to me, I was never feeling impatient, like, well, I need a book deal. I need to make this. I need this many listeners. It's like, it's all a gift all the time, every single second. The journey is fully and totally satisfying. And that is the magic of how you then manifest more. But that's because you don't need it. And we manifest a match of what already is. So you manifest what is the vibrational equivalent to what the resonance is. So what's really exciting is then you don't need anything to happen because you already have everything, which is the feeling of full satiation. And I mean, I really learned this from my grandmother, who had nothing and, survived, horrible war and had total poverty. And she was just so rich and in every way. Like, she used to say, you should always be compassionate because you don't know what somebody woke up with today. And she used to ask the checkout clerk at the grocery store, did you have a hug today? I'd love to give you a hug. And she would take in stray dogs, and she would, put me to sleep singing me Yiddish songs. And she had been through hell and back and just felt so rich. And she used to say, do you know that I'm a millionaire? And I would be like, no, she's not. And she'd be like, look what I have. I have you, and I have my heartbeat, and I have, her mother. She lost her mother so young, but she had all of these poems her mother wrote. And she's like, whatever. It's like there are people who are so rich because they have everything. And then there are people who, some people are so poor, all they have is money.
Thank you. This flew by. We did it. We're at the end. You have given us so much to work with and sit with and integrate into our lives and our relationships.
You're so kind and loving, and you make such a beautiful space.
Okay, so we're celebrating your fantastic new book, Abundant Ever After: Tools for Creating a Life of Prosperity and Ease. And that is going to be in the show notes. Anything else that you want to share with listeners about where they can find you and connect with you more deeply?
Well, this was wonderful. I post on Instagram at Cathy.Heller like every day. If you go to cathyheller.com/book, there's like a free meditation and some things that can just be useful. And the podcast and the book are the same name. So if you like the book, Abundant Ever After, there's a podcast and there's about 1,000 episodes, and we're all just walking each other home. So thank you for having me on. It's really such an honor. You're so humble and lovely.
Thank you. Thank you, Cathy. Thank you, Cathy, for this uplifting and philosophical conversation about finding goodness and wholeness. Go check out her newest book by following the link in the show notes of the episode. You're going to love it. And remember, you can return to that meditation that we did at the top of the episode anytime that you might need it. Until next time, be well. Do you have a relationship question that you want answered on the show? Visit reimagininglove.com to send in a written or audio question. Questions can be about intimate partnerships, family relationships, friendships, you name it. If you're looking for more love and relationship content, you can find me on Instagram at dr.alexandra.solomon or visit my website, dralexandrasolomon.com, where you'll find my blog as well as the Intimate Relationships 101 e-course based off of the popular class I teach at Northwestern University. Thank you for listening and see you next week here on Reimagining Love.